Be back and get interactive with us on X Spaces, on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on myjoyonline.com. The comments are welcome. Now, let's settle for the details. She first took her seat in Parliament in 2013, representing Dom Kwabenya, a position she would successfully hold in both the 7th and 8th Parliament. Her dedication and official political acumen quickly earned her recognition within the NPP. Now, catching the attention of President Akufo-Addo in 2017, she was appointed Deputy Majority Leader and also served as Minister of State in charge of public procurement. By 2021, in Akufo-Addo's second term, she took on the role of Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, a tenure marked by significant controversy, if you like. However, her bid for a fourth term as Dom Kwabenya MP ended in defeat at the party's primary, but the party will go on to lose that particular seat. My guest this afternoon, I'm privileged to say that I'm joined by one of Ghana's finest, Sarah Adwoa Safo, in the studio. Adwoa, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And it's good to see you. It's been a while.
You too. It's been ages, yeah.
Yeah. And before we start, I mean, because you are a lawyer, you know, the story that broke yesterday, the former governor of the central bank, the raid on his property by operatives of national security. Now we've been told that it was sanctioned by the Office of the Attorney General. Okay. What do you make of this?
I think it's something that ought to be looked at again. It's reoccurring. Successive governments. This government goes, this government comes in, one house is raided, the other. I think it's about time that we show a bit of decorum, a bit of maturity when it comes to our politicking. If we can go into the legalities of it, it can amount to trespassing, invasion of privacy, and all that. I think that if we ought to do things like that, if we do it in a more lawful way, a more humanly way, it will help develop our democracy.
I mean, it's becoming like a tit for tat kind of a
exactly kind of reoccurring. It's an incident that, you know, this government comes in, it goes, and the other. I think Ghanaians at a point will be fed up, and so we should advise ourselves as politicians. And I respect the Attorney General. He was my tutor in law school,
right?
And so I know he knows what to do right. Exactly, yeah.
Now, I mean, so how is life treating you?
It's been good. It's been good, yeah.
In public service, out of public service?
In public service, yeah. It's been, there's been a few hitches here and there, but so far, so good. I can only be thankful to the Almighty for how far He brought me in my political career or political space that I occupied. But now I think that having been voted out, I'm dedicating a lot of my time with my old man, as you know.
Right.
He's made me a leader of the church. And so I'm administratively, I mean, he's still alive, so he's the general overseer, he's the founder, he's the leader. But I would say that administratively, I'm going to go in and help him. He did that with a colorful coronation as a queen mother and everything. It was all over social media. I'm going to do that. He has a big business empire.
Right.
I know you are aware.
Right.
People just think that it's the church and it's just
farming,
the ultimate.
Transportation.
Yeah, we have a transport company, we have schools, we have hospitals, we have the automobile, we have the technological research center, a lot. We have pharmaceutical. So I'm going to do all that. So I'm the new CEO of the Kantanka Business Empire as well.
Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. So there's a lot going on in my life, though I'm not actively in Parliament. Okay. And I'm not quitting politics either.
Of course, we'll come to that. And the vehicles that you are producing, is it getting the attention of government? I know that during the NPP administration, some directive was made that government should procure some of the public vehicles from Kantanka. Did it happen? And what is the arrangement today? Are you getting the needed patronage?
I would say that most of our clientele is from the private sector. That I can say on authority. Ghanaians have shown a lot of love. Ghanaians have been very patriotic about it. They accept it, and it's a very good vehicle. I mean, for our terrain, a tropical country like ours, it has all the engineering that goes with it.
Okay.
So what I'll say is that Ghanaians in general have patronized it, but the needed support that we ought to have gotten from government
is not coming.
Hasn't been as is expected. But a few of the government institutions, the late Sir John, when he was alive at Forestry, did a few procurements. I know that National Identification Authority also did a few procurements as well. Yeah.
The Don Kwabenya constituency.
Yeah.
You won it in 2012. And then you
entered Parliament 2013.
In 2013. And it was at the same time that I had also been posted to Parliament as a correspondent. So we had a lot of, working relationship, if you like.
Yes, exactly.
And I remember in 2017, when the NPP had just come to power, and a civil society organization did a research about performance of MPs in the Parliament, and they came to the conclusion that some did not perform. Yeah. So I remember on Joy News I was called. They said among those they thought did not perform, they mentioned you. And I challenged them that it cannot be true. So. That as a parliamentary correspondent, in fact, I could actually count on my fingers those who were very serious when it came to even consideration of bills on the floor. Yeah. And I mentioned your name, Mark Asibe-Yeboah, Afenyo Mark, and then the late Dr. Anthony Akuto said Dominic Nitiwo. So they went back to the hands and they came back to apologize and said that indeed what I said was right. Yeah. And that for me was one of the learning curves that helped you get to the position of Deputy Majority Leader at a very young age, and then added to it the Minister for Public Procurement. So it was your hard work, not because maybe some people favored you so much in the party that got you where you are.
Yes, and I'm happy that I have the honor of people like you who are testifying to what they actually witnessed during my first term in Parliament. I was a practicing lawyer when I entered, but I took a firm decision that the firm was going to operate with or without me, but I wasn't going to do active private practice. So I was doing more solicitor work at the chambers, and I dedicated my time to learn parliamentary rules. What
was the motivation then? Because a lot of MPs, especially the conservation of bills, you will find them at the coffee shop.
And especially the women.
Exactly. The insertion and delete. People didn't pay so much. But you did. Even though you were new in Parliament then. What motivated you to dedicate so much attention to the real work of Parliament?
I think that firm decision that I took, that I wanted to learn, I made sure that the prime times of Parliament are in the mornings when it's for statements.
Right.
And when somebody has read a statement, it's more political, the minority gets up, talks and all that. That, as a lawyer, wasn't a learning process for me because I was used to submissions in court. And so if there's a document that has been submitted, just quickly glancing through and making a meaningful submission or meaningful contribution wasn't something that was challenging enough for me. So I made a firm decision that the nitty-gritty of lawmaking is what was very confusing. Just as he said, you just be seated, I delete, insert, Mr. Speaker, I move. That is all that you hear. Right. I would give credence to a few. Honorable Chairman Samusu, I learned a lot from him. The Honorable Adwoa Safo.
Right.
Actually, he was the one I sat close to. And I always go like, Uncle, I want to learn. And then he would take me through, but I learned from them. There was one day he challenged me, and that is what killed it for me with bills. Right. And I told myself, I've made it, and so I'm going to stay for every bill that was passed in Parliament. There was a bill on the floor. He was teaching me how to do it, so he was doing the delete, insert, I move, whatever. And then as the weeks went by, one afternoon, I was expecting him there. So I was there next to his seat. Then he called, he sent his assistant to me that he's not going to be able to come in early.
And so you should lead.
So I should lead with the amendments.
Right.
I started shivering, my knees. I was like, what is this man trying to do? But in the heat of the moment, there was also nobody to relegate that role to. So I took it up, and then I made a few mistakes. I had the leader, was actually Mr. Bonsu then, who came in. Joe Weiss also came in, and then when like, Mr. Speaker, what she's trying to say is, and so I learned from there, and that was it. So for me, I learned the rules of Parliament as well.
And you think that it was a factor in considering you for the position of Deputy Majority Leader then? My contribution in the Hansards for 2012 through to 2017, before I became leader, active on the floor of Parliament, active on the floor. So just as you said, when Odikro came in, that I was one of the MPs that wasn't regular, I thought it was politically motivated, but they came in, did what was needful of them, and then we moved on. So I think that I learned the rules of Parliament. Being a lawyer also helped, and so I caught the eye of those who matters at the time. And I'm guessing that you got your reward for the position of Deputy Majority Leader, and then also Minister of State in charge of Public Procurement. For the first term of the Akufo-Addo administration. Yes, exactly. And then in the next stage of the administration, not much was seen of you. Even though you're missing something. Okay. The first female to have occupied the seat absolutely. Of the... Yes. And I guess you paved the way for the current Deputy Minority Leader, Patricia Apiagyei. My mother. We are yet to see the day where a female will lead Parliament in the capacity of Majority Leader. I look forward to that day. But how was it like? Because most time, was HMS Abunsu will leave the organization and you have to lead. Yes. People with egos, I mean, in terms of capacity, some older than you and everything, but you led them. Yeah. It wasn't. Was there difficult moments that you can share with us? Oh, yeah. Just as you said, there were times, most of the times actually, my leader was so engaged in other responsibilities, mostly outside the jurisdiction, and I had to manage the caucus, manage the house, both sides. When you're managing, the house, it's just both minority and majority. And also serve as a link between Parliament and the presidency. And the presidency. And that was a very good opportunity for me to learn. And initially, it was a bit tensed. Initially, the idea that it was a woman leading, a lot of older guys weren't too comfortable, but you know, when you give them what is expected to be given them, which is the respect and the acknowledgement that they are your seniors in Parliament. So sometimes, when I was leading, there were times that I would want to make a submission. Right. But I'll turn to Honourable the late Adwoa Safo. So I go like, senior, we had this old boy me, also I don't problem. Sometimes it was done deliberately, not because I couldn't make the submission. You wanted to give them the respect that most of the time I'll go to Honourable Obi Amwa, Obi, you know, you know, so I thought that carrying everybody along in the absence of a leader who was very experienced, who they were so familiar with, in his absence, they thought there was a vacuum, and I had to step in well. So I think that it wasn't easy, but yet the Minister of State or your supervisory role over the Public Procurement Authority came under some serious allegations. Eventually, the president had to dissolve that particular ministry. What role did you play to contribute to that? I don't think I played any role. I think that it was a very Some said the Public Procurement Authority was used as a vehicle for corruption. And you was in charge, you know, saw all these things happen and nothing much was done to correct it. I think the initiative to set up a ministry on its own, which existed in other jurisdictions, I can talk about Canada for a fact, was a good initiative. But I think, honestly, sitting back now, we could have done it better. The reason I'm saying that is, I was a Minister of State in charge of procurement, so I was more or less a Minister of State under at the presidency. I had no budget line. I was supposed to play an advisory role to His Excellency. But again, you ask yourself, procurements under our Public Procurement Act are decentralized. So every ministry, every state agency, every entity
does its own procurement. And most of the times, it's their cabinet minister that comes to cabinet who takes the initiative that we want to do this, and then they have to follow the law. There was no clear-cut situation where an agency or a ministry would bring anything to the president for advice. So again, your advisory role. So more or less, I was working closely with the Public Procurement Authority. We started as a public procurement secretariat. And Elton, you know, there were certain amendments that I proposed that we do so that the ministry would be more solid, have the legal backing. You remember there was a question on the floor of Parliament about certain procurement that had been done.
Right.
And the question was directed to me.
Right.
And I couldn't answer the question on the floor of Parliament because per our rules, if you go into the Public Procurement Act, reference of a minister, when you go to the definition section, was referring to the Minister for Finance. So again, you ask yourself, what is your locus in Parliament? So questions were being filed in Parliament, but I couldn't answer, and the Minister for Finance would.
Because technically, you didn't have jurisdiction.
Technically, we didn't do the amendments that will give you that, will clothe you with that power to do that. And again, there were two entities that were under the public procurement unit in terms of governance. You had the Central Tender Review Board, and then you have the Public Procurement Authority. The law establishing the procurement framework for Ghana actually placed all these agencies under the Ministry of Finance.
Right.
Yes. And so, more or less, you had a Minister of State there, yet everything procurement was still under the Minister of Finance.
But I'm wondering why you would accept a position that had so many deficiencies. Because it is not just because of your work in Parliament. You have a diploma in public procurement law and policy.
Diploma.
So you were fit for the job.
I have to.
Yet you accepted a job that has so many deficiencies. Why?
Not because it had so many deficiencies at the time. Because it was a novelty. It was something that we're trying. It was something new. And it was bound to happen. So when we created it, it was something that I think we could have built on it. Because, you know, even the current government, when His Excellency Mahama was giving one of his statements, I was behind the TV, whether he was the Economic Forum.
Economic
Dialogue. He stressed, I could say that about 2 pages of his speech was on procurement. That tells you about 80% of our government funding goes through procurement.
And people say that there's a lot of corruption there.
Yes.
Under the NPP, sole sourcing became the order of the day.
If where the human interface is there, there's bound to be corruption. That is why the law was enacted in the first place. And then we wanted to move on. But the attacks that came on, the criticisms, it wasn't necessary. I remember one day the president actually tasked me to bring one jurisdictional example of what I was proposing, as in taking all the agencies and placing it, giving it a full ministry status, giving a line of procurement, centralizing procurement, making sure proper training is done and everything. And I presented the paper, and he was more than willing to, but I think that...
it didn't happen.
I don't know. Then our next term, he has the executive power. The next term, all I could say, Jack, the whole thing was scrapped.
But I remember that the reason why I'm sure the president took the decision, that was after this scandal that rocked the authority, the CEO then.
Oh, yeah.
And that automatically, or that virtually led to the collapse of your role in that particular sector.
I wouldn't say so. Because as I said, the whole institution wasn't properly so-called constituted under my ministry. I was working directly under the ministry of, under the office of the president. So it was a Ministry of Finance thing. But anytime anything goes wrong, it is my ministry and my name. But properly so-called, strictly speaking,
everything related to Ministry of Finance.
Nothing. Even Public Procurement Authority, the Attorney General, per the law, has representation on the board, on the governing board. I couldn't go into their meetings to see whether they were doing the right things. I wasn't entitled to any of the reports that were coming out, informing their decisions on approvals that they were giving. And sometimes they were giving retrospective approvals and all that. I didn't have any direct control They were reporting directly. There were many times I would go to see the chief executive, and I'll be told that he's gone to his minister, which is the Minister of Finance, or I would request a meeting with him. So,
did you try to correct this with the president?
And that's what I'm saying. He asked me to prepare a paper,
and you didn't see the light of day.
Which I did, and I think we discussed it in cabinet a couple of times. But just as I said, there were a lot of things that had to be done legally in terms of the legal framework. And then if we were really willing to actually make it an institution or a ministry on its own was another thing altogether.
Final question on this matter, because this
But we did a lot of work.
Okay.
30%, we brought a 30% policy for persons with disability, women in procurement and all that. And the Ministry of Finance actually put that in the budget. And that was a document and a process, the stakeholder engagements and everything was done by my office.
What can we do as a nation to address corruption that has become so much associated with public procurement?
Oh, public procurement. I think that...
Because it's your area in a way.
I think we need to develop more of specialized courts that deal with procurement. I have a paper on it. You know, naming and shaming, prosecuting, investigating, and making people responsible for what they do. For many years in Parliament, I sat on I was a member of the Public Accounts Committee. And year in, year out, my brother, every time, majority of the infractions or the malpractices that you find out of the findings of the Auditor General were procurement infractions. What happens after that? The report is laid in Parliament, we debate on it, and we leave it at just that. So I think that persons that are named for procurement breaches, procurement violations in all these reports, we should bring them before the law. The Attorney General should prosecute. And we can't prosecute using the normal courts. We should have specialized courts, like we have the specialized courts for human rights. Yes, we should do same for procurement, because it is it's an area of governance that is very important. If that is where a chunk of our resource, a chunk of our budgetary allocations are going. So I think that naming, shaming, not just debating on the floor and leave it at just that. We should move on and prosecute. We should have a law reporting structure in there, reporting cases on people that have violated procurement in this country. And it will act as a deterrent.
Absolutely, I agree with you perfectly. Right, so Adwoa Safo is my guest here on the pulse, former member of Parliament for Dom Kwabena, former Minister of State, a lawyer, and of course we are going into other matters here on the program. So, Honourable, still unhonourable, once unhonourable, always unhonourable.
Yeah.
Now, when the NPP, maybe next year, when they signal the process to hold elections in the various constituencies, I'm talking about parliamentary primaries, will you put yourself forward for the
which constituency?
For the Dom Kwabena constituency?
I've been asked many times. I've been asked many times on this issue. What I would say is, considering what I've been through, considering how I've been treated in the constituency, despite my devotion, despite my sacrifices, despite my hard work, how I've been treated, I don't think so. I won't.
You won't contest the constituency again?
It would take my father to change my mind. I won't. I have done 12 years. I have done 12 solid years, and I've left a good legacy in the constituency. I will not contest Dom Kwabena. I'm moving forward. I'm looking at other bigger things.
Like what? The presidency?
One day, not now. Yes. I'm looking at speakership, yes. I'm looking at
running mate, the presidency itself. Running mate.
Oh, what I'm saying is,
Professor Jane has opened the door. So
exactly. I'm looking at higher challenging opportunities.
You've been a minister of state before. You've been a cabinet minister before. You've been an MP before. The only bigger position ahead of you, possibly.
I've been a speaker.
You've been the speaker, a vice president, and a vice. So these are the three key positions that may be bigger than the position you've held before.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Dom Kwabena, parliamentary seat, either in the constituency or any other constituency, is a no-no for me. No. It would take my father to change my mind. I will not contest Dominic Kwabenya, so they should get it right. When I'm speaking about Dominic Kwabenya, they shouldn't think it's a way of preparatory works for me to return. No, I'm moving on. I have moved on a long time ago. If you're appreciated, it motivates you to do more. If you're not appreciated and you're treated like, excuse me to say, any rag, no, I won't go back there. No.
And you are blaming party executives in the constituency for this treatment?
Of course.
So I'm looking at the figures. In 2016, you pulled 63,000. That's 67% of the votes. In 2020, you moved it to 75,000, 58%. In 2024, when everyone, everyone thought it was going to be a walk in the park for Michael Quay, he lost it, 50,477 against NDC 51,634. This for some, it's more like a referendum that was to whether accept or reject the candidature then.
Also, what I would say is, before the primaries, the recent primaries what we did for the 2024 election, I had many issues going on. Internally, I was branded as unpopular. I was branded as ungrateful to the party. I was branded as somebody that the people will abhor, the people will reject. The people are not willing to even see my face in the constituency. So it was a party decision, and they brought all the machinations that they had at their disposal to make sure that we kick Adwoa Safo out by hook or crook. Forgetting that you would use a delegate's album that you would manipulate. But at the end of the day, you will present a candidate to the larger picture, which is the larger electorate. And somebody that has suddenly become unpopular, somebody that the people will reject, somebody that has been so unfaithful to the party. I was supposed to be present at campaign rallies and campaigns in the constituency. And so our defeat is caused by my absence. I don't see the logic in this.
The party, some people in the party says that when they needed you most, you also rejected the party. You turned your back on them.
I didn't.
There was even a point that your own members wanted to get a speaker to kick you out of parliament.
I didn't. And all that we were doing, all that we did and we were doing, the constituents were watching. Elton, I'm happy that you started with how I started in parliament. Very committed, very hardworking, very meticulous, very detailed. I made sure I did my work the way I was supposed to do it, both within Parliament and outside of Parliament. When I had my executive appointment, I did same. And you know, when there's a character assassination, there is the need to set the record straight. Nobody should tell me I am discussing party issues on TV, radio, I should stop. Reputation is everything that anybody has got. It has stuck. Things that we said, things that we did, things that we said about me are stuck in the minds of Ghanaians. I've been branded the way I'm not supposed to be branded. And I owe it to myself to clear it up, to let Ghanaians know my side of the story. And that is not selling my party. You know what? Nobody gets up in the morning and prays to God Almighty, I expect you to bring a misfortune along my way so I can testify and glorify your holy name. Nobody does that. But as humans, we are bound to face challenges. And I faced challenges at a point in my career. And those who ought to know about those challenges, I let them know.
They knew.
You remember that in 2020, when I was going for the elections, I was heavily pregnant.
Right.
Yes, I have a role to play as a mother. I lost my kid. I lost my baby. I didn't get what I was expecting out of the term of my pregnancy. It didn't end there. In the time of my grief, my oldest son fell ill in the United States. I had to be there. And I made sure I notified those who ought to know. And I wasn't there the way they're making the picture look as if you're there and you're not. I was there, and I was making sure that what ought to be said and communicated to all those that matter, I did.
Including the chief of staff, the president?
Exactly. as a minister, you can't travel out without permission from the minister.
So
from the chief of staff.
They knew the challenges we were going through.
Exactly. And I expected mothers to feel my pain. I expected fathers to feel my pain. And that is what happened. My son was at the verge of death. I had the choice to stay as a mother and take care of my son, or take up my position as a member of parliament and as a minister. Any mother looking and watching me today should put herself in my shoes. What choice would you have made? Of course, if you're not a witch, you're going to choose that of your child. And that I did, and I don't regret it. That I did. And you know, in America, in the advanced countries, their child care support system, their child care and welfare support system, it's not like what we have here. If a child is in need of a motherly love, care, and hospitalized, and had to go through surgery, they expect at least one parent to be there. Yeah. They'll go during recovery. He was still going to school in his wheelchairs and everything. We had to operate on my son's legs. And every stage in this journey, you told the executive, the Jubilee House, about the challenges you're going through. Everybody knows and I'm guessing this happened around the time that your position as Minister for Gender was revoked. Is that it? Yes, yes. In the mid of all that was when the revocation came. Because the claim is that you had abandoned posts. And you were unreachable. I said to someone's on record to have said that you trust many times to call you. Another prayer was on record. A number of my colleagues on my side were on record attacking me. Yes, they all knew. They said they tried to reach you. You didn't answer the call. They took me out of the. They tried to call you on Facebook. It didn't work. You were incommunicado at the time. You know, we have parliamentary caucus platforms. They said I was a trader because I voted to bring Speaker Bagbin into power. So they took me out of the group. Other groups I was taken out of it. But did you vote for Bagbin? I didn't. You knew what happened in Parliament. The candidates in Parliament will testify. It was a secret ballot, so nobody would have told. Yes. And you know me. When I didn't want to vote for e-levy, I wasn't there to vote for e-levy. I'm not a pushover. When I believe in something, I stand with it. This whole thing started with bringing Professor Okwe for the second term. I remember our members at the time, because a new leadership hadn't been chosen. So you were still the deputy leader? They were clear in their minds that go communicate with the president, that he should give us an opportunity to engage with him. We are not too comfortable with it. We want him to propose other names so that we can. The caucus didn't like Professor Michael Kwe then. They didn't like him for the second time. And so if you remember at the point, names like Justice Doche, Papa Usu Ankuma came up. So there was that opportunity for other names also to pop up. But at the end of the day, the power lied with the president. And he called leadership again and said, this is the decision that we should all go with. Let's whip everybody in line. Let's take Professor Okwe. And so we went there, told members that is how we're going to vote. So despite the caucus reservation about the candidature of the president still decided that, forget it, I'm still staying with Professor Michael Kwe. Yes, but it wasn't the same day. Take it or leave it. Thinking that he'll call for the engagement and then give members opportunity to bring other names, but he communicated again to us that we're sticking with. And I won't say that members had personal grudges with Professor Okwe, but something happened in Parliament. That new chamber thing that we dropped that chamber, remember? Right. It made him very unpopular within our caucus because they thought the timing was wrong. Ghanaians were so angry that we had to use that money for other things. So it wasn't anything personal. That is what members communicated to us at the time. You know that during the process of voting and during the process of sorting the votes, that the yes and no and everything, right, a fight broke out. Remember, Honorable Carlos came in and started. West MP decided to do what had to be done, and he was targeted in the constituency. Was it a personal decision or the decision of the caucus to have him run away with the ballots? Those members who were telling us at that time that they were revolting the choice of speakership for Professor Michael Kwe, were telling us that if we don't do what they want, they will go in there and vote against him. And during the setting, they would allow leadership to come close.
Right.
But other members will not come close. So we were closer and we saw exactly what was happening. During the sorting, things were happening. And something had to be done. And that thing was done. At the end of the day, that was around 4 a.m.
Right. I was in Parliament then.
And the hula baloo that resulted from all this voting process. And then, considering the time at the time, we had finished all this around 4 a.m. And you know the procedure of Parliament.
Right.
The new Parliament must sit. We must elect a clerk, elect a speaker and his deputies. They have to swear in members of Parliament. Sometimes, we don't even go home to sleep.
Yeah.
We march straight from there to Independence Square. And that is specifically in our 1992 Constitution because we cannot create a vacuum that could cause any coup d'etat when there's no, executive occupation of the seat. And so at the time, leaders there were like 4 a.m. If we have to line up every member of Parliament, 275, to cast a vote again and count and declare a speaker, it will go into the next day and that vacuum will be created. So there was no declaration of results for speakership. That you can say Adwoa Safo's own was the one that was given to Babing and Speaker Babing, and that is why Speaker Babing. There was no. They should tell me if they want declaration. There was a declaration, and I voted for Okwe against Okwe. Okwe Nyaseng.
I remember I spoke to.
So they made it was a consensus. We agreed amongst ourselves, both sides. So that given the circumstances, technically, let's give.
Babing was not elected.
You know it.
Yeah, I remember I spoke to Samuel Atachan who said that per the NDC's calculation, they had come with figures that they had won by more than 5 votes from MPs. Meaning some NPP MPs, more than one, voted for Speaker Babing to become Speaker of Parliament. And the claim is that you may have been one of those who voted against the president's choice.
At the time, Elton, we had a national security minister, right? We had security agencies in this country. Right?
Yes.
They should come tell us how many yes and how many no's. That even out of the ones that were destroyed, they were able to capture. Was it more? It was. I'm telling you on authority. It was more than 2. It was more than 3. It was more than 5.
And it was a secret ballot. You are a lawyer, and lawyers usually when you go to court and there's a criminal case, you deal with motive.
Yeah.
So those who conclude that you may have been one of them makes the point.
Because
if I can just find and then create this scenario and then ask you whether it fits the narrative of people who think that you may have voted for Alban Babi. They say that you contested the primaries with the son of the speaker. The son of the speaker at the time was unemployed. In fact, he was Ghana's ambassador to India. He was doing well. Then the speaker son came to contest the primaries with you. The speaker is in Parliament. The leaders help him to execute his duties as speaker. You happen to be one of them. Exactly. And so in terms of maintaining normalcy in the House, you will play a key role in that direction. Some say that the speaker could not speak to his son to say that the person you are going to contest, one of the leaders who is helping him to run the House, it didn't happen. And then the election came on. We heard comments that came from Esla and the fact that you had to virtually, you did everything you could to win it. Now you've won it. You have been asked to go and vote for the speaker whose son wanted you to lose your job. And so the motive could be clear that you may have been one of them.
No, it is the easiest conclusion to arrive at. It is the easiest conclusion anybody will arrive at because of our previous contest. But I want to say and place on record that I was part of people, the members of Parliament that brought him for the first term. So that at that time, I didn't find the need to oust him. I did. And that wasn't the first time his son had contested me in that seat, on that seat. It wasn't it wasn't the 2018 contest.
Yeah.
That wasn't the first time that I contested Junior. So whether he spoke to his son or not, and whether that influenced me or not, that's what I've said to you. That at the time we were working with the president, he had told us point blank, whip everybody, we're going this direction. if I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't appear in Parliament, and nobody could have forced me. I was there, I was cooperating, and I made sure that I voted. And you can call Honorable Chairman Sambunsu and ask him. I was stuck in traffic. And I said, I'm stuck in traffic. So he called his motorcade. I said, may dispatch rider Ababe for you. Why go through all that stress if I'm going to vote no when I could abstain? So it's neither here nor there. But the misrepresentation out there, the lies out there to paint Adwoa Safo black, that indeed there was a counting process, and then there was a discovery that my vote and another vote. When you go to other quarters, they say it was only my vote that brought Speaker back then. You go to other quarters, it was me and another person. And they were tagging another MP, and they were doing all sorts of things in his constituency just to oust him. Why is it that we don't take our time to go into the parliamentary hazards and find out what happened on that day? And you were there in Parliament.
Right.
There was no such declaration.
In fact, there wasn't. There wasn't any
no declaration.
Yeah.
There was a consensus building. Both sides agreed. Young farmer Speaker Bagbin, and that is how Right Honourable Speaker is still Speaker and has continued. How is that Adwoa Safo's doing?
So you think if Professor Michael Roux was changed, perhaps Bagbin wouldn't have been Speaker of Parliament for the 8th Parliament? I
think that even as a member of Parliament, when you go into your constituencies and they're telling you, Honourable, we need a pill, and you don't listen, what happens? They will oust you. Yeah, so we're dealing with a group, a parliamentary caucus, a parliamentary group, and they were telling us, okay, this is we've tried it, but let's try another. And you know, it had a lot of dynamics that they were and logic that came out of their arguments that made a lot of sense to me, Adwoa Safo, because we had a very tight Parliament,
right? And
they were thinking that somebody very liberal, somebody out of the parliamentary whole setting, who
could take over,
could soften the minority, could maneuver everything. But at the end of the day, the choice was that for the president, and he made us that aware that this is how we should go. How is that Adwoa Safo's problem when we go and it doesn't go the way we want to go? We wanted it to go. How is that my problem? When our members who were going to vote warned us. They warned us. The writings were clear on the walls for us to read.
And clearly, leadership did not act on this warning. And it fits into the committee that was set up in the Ashanti region after the last election, chaired by Chairman Sambunsu. Their conclusion, which is now a matter of public record, points to the fact that Nana Akufo-Addo was not amenable to advice or suggestions, and that whenever he took a decision, he didn't change it. And a lot of people they spoke to said that it didn't help and was one of the reasons why the party lost the 2024 election. You worked with the president closely. Did you see that kind of traits in him, that he was somebody who was not amenable to suggestions and advice?
I think that the first term was good. Ghanaians had a lot of expectations, and there was that, eagerness and that preparedness to meet that expectation of Ghanaians. But I think that moving into our second term, I would support exactly what Honourable Chairman Sambunsu was saying. It was as if we weren't hearing. It was as if we didn't care. It was as if we were on our jolly ride. Chiefs were complaining. Pastors were complaining. Party people were complaining. The youth. Everything that we were doing, it was as if there was no election ahead of us. Not that governance is about thinking about the next election. It's about governance. But you should know that your track record is what is going to secure you your next term.
Right.
So you have to listen. At the time, I think that at a point, we were not listening.
Is it a normal second term syndrome that almost every party, face?
Maybe. And we did a lot of things that got people really aggrieved. People were really bitter. The business community. My father is a typical example. The president was my father's lawyer in the 80s and in the 90s. So he has a close relationship with my father, Apostle Dr. Adwoa Safo. He has a lot of businesses. One is our transport company, Imperial Express.
Right.
Very thriving. It was doing very well. Concentrating in the northern regions, Togo, Benin, everywhere. You know, we wake up one morning, and to our utmost surprise, Honorable Henry Quarter brought a team of guys with bulldozers, whether they were, how do they call them? These macho guys, Langards or whatever. Mm. He didn't even give us notice to even park our computers. They pulled everything down one day. And
the reason being what? That you were occupying and land that didn't belong to you?
The land didn't belong to us. The land was government land. The land was being leased to us and we were paying. It was a land for the Sports Council. Mm. So at the time, Honorable Neil Ante van der Poel was the one that the general manager then entered into that agreement with, and we were paying, and that is where we were operating from. And a lot of people do that. Mm. Most of the terminals that you see don't belong to the transport companies. Mm. We lease them.
Right.
And we were doing everything, not that we stopped paying the lease. They said there was an order from above that those lands were being recaptured for a government project. They pulled everything down without notice. Until date, there has not been any government project on that land. And how do you expect Christo Asafo members and my father to go and vote for the NPP? How? We have blood running in our veins. I have blood running in my veins. That is the company that took care of me. The man has sacrificed his daughter to you and brings the largest votes and the largest constituency to your political party. Mm. Is that a way to pay him back? If you don't help him expand, if you don't help him with his automobile, you go and pull down a transport company that will use these buses to bus electorates to go and vote in the past.
Did you complain this to the president? And what was the response?
No response.
But did you complain?
You did.
Elton.
Complain when they want to take it. When you complain, who are you complaining to? Honorable Henry Quarter, after that, I called and called and called him. He never picked my call. He never picked my call after telling me it was an order from above and they were going to use it for, I don't want to mention the person's name because I've been advised. And they have walled it from then.
Up until now.
It is still there. Nothing has been done on it. And I'm daring them. Now NDC is in power. Go and do the project you want to do over there. Whether you'll be given the opportunity to. Why destroy people's businesses? The business community is not only my father. Pastors, we were arresting pastors that prayed for us to come into government. You expect him to tell his church following that go and vote for NPP again. So I'm telling you, we are the cause of our own loss.
Have you appeared before the Professor Michael Quay's committee? Because it is the committee is asking people why the NPP lost. You have stories to tell.
It's a very bogus committee.
Why do you say so?
Why? And you know, a committee that is put together and it's an intentional committee put together just to make sure that we find certain facts and push a particular candidate away from the candidacy so that we can bring our own. You call that a credible committee, fact-finding committee. If Professor Michael Quay thinks he has integrity, thinks that he is credible, I want the first page of his fact-finding report. Why my son Michael Quay Jr. lost Domekwa Abenya's seat. He should give us a detailed report on that.
That is possible.
If he's able, no.
It is possible it could be captured.
No, if he's able to do it and do it with the needed integrity, with the transparency, without biases and prejudices, I will take any report finding that he puts in there against Dr. Bawumia. Other than that, that report will not work in this party.
Is this not a premature conclusion, knowing very well that the report is not out? We don't even know the content.
The composition. He should, no, please, your backyard is burning. And you think the best person to lead a committee, a fact-finding committee like that constituency is included. will do a thorough job for you.
So
why don't you go out for an independent person?
So you want the entire committee changed, bring in new people to do this work? This is not the first time.
I'm telling him there are other credible members. That's why I'm saying I'm just talking about him. I know there are other members. I'm not attacking anybody. I am attacking the chair of it. Hey, couldn't we have found anybody in the party to chair?
Because he's conflicted.
Exactly. Why do you do that? And we know what we know, and we've heard what we've heard. He shouldn't come and tell us that we should blame everything on Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia because Ghanaians don't want him, and that he won't fly again, and then we can't market him again, and so blah, 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 blah. Uncle Churosta and Yamani were reporting him.
You suspect that is what is coming up?
We are warning him. If he brings that report, nobody's going to work with that report. And that it means that we are not serious to rebuild, we are not serious to regroup, and we are not serious to recapture power.
The Ashanti report doesn't blame Bawumia for the party's defeat, at least from what we've...
And that is credible. Couldn't the same person have done that work for the party? Who has more parliamentary experience and electoral experience than Osei Mensah?
But that is only Ashanti
His
region.
name was there and they shut it down.
That is only Ashanti. The film may be
His
different
name
from
came up, they shut it down.
The other 15 regions.
The name popped up, they shut it down. Why? Why? And now we want somebody whose hands are already soiled in a defeat. And now he's coming to determine whose defeat to what? To structure and present. That is a what? Do you know the number of votes that we bring on board from Domiko Abinya? His son should bow down his head in shame anywhere he is right now. We win over 30,000 margin. You present your son. Since I sat on the seat, my son can do it. My son can do it. They have never given me peace in that constituency. We hand over the mantle to your own son, and you were running the show with your son, and you bring this humiliating defeat to the party, and you still think you have credibility to determine whether Bawumia should come again or not. No, we are bringing Bawumia back.
But if you think that, the candidate you presented in 2024 was not the choice of the people, and you obviously is the choice, then why don't you go back and take the seat for the NPP?
I have said it, Elton. I said the only person that can change my mind
is your father.
Take that seat again. And you know the dynamics of the constituency.
Right.
Crystal Safo, without Crystal Safo, you cannot win Domiko Abinya. The guy can go 100 times without me. And Domiko Abinya is Adwoa Safo and her father. And without me and my father, that seat will be forever for the NDC. And it's your son who sold it to them. So
it was a personal decision not to help him campaign in the last day because you were solely behind Dr. Bawumia across the country. Some are saying, why didn't you help him win? You neglected him, and now the seat is out of the hands of the NPP in the hands of a person who, for some, didn't even think that she was going to win.
Elton, there's a popular Bible verse. A prophet is not respected in his own town, right? If I was giving the needed acknowledgement, the respect that I deserved as a third-term MP, no MP has... Esodaku was the first MP of that constituency. He was part of Medina from NPP. He did 2 terms. Professor Michael Quay was the next MP. He did 2 terms. The first woman to lead and shoot the votes up massively was me. And I was the first to be able to do a 3-term in that constituency. Nobody wants to show me a single acknowledgement or respect. Nobody came knocking at my doorstep. And I still have the popularity and the support of the people that anywhere I go with him, they will leave him and come to me. The guy feels threatened. You know what? Before the declaration of results for this just ended 2024 general election,
right.
You know, there was an issue with Domiko Abinya. They wanted to...
Yes, it took a while before the declaration was done.
I was invited to a meeting. I was called by the campaign manager, Honorable Pariansa. The chief of staff also called. I went. A few of the big wigs called me. I said, okay, I'm going to be there. I got there. Michael Quay Jr. was in the meeting. He told the members there that if I am seated in the meeting, he's not ready to have a meeting with them. And I told him I'm not a pushover. If you want any profession in the world, that seniority is something that they cherish. It's the legal profession. And that is why when I see attached, I go like, oh, senior. I said, I'm your senior at the bar. Assuming we were in court, you will rise for me to take a seat and do my case before you do. So why do you want them to walk me out of a meeting that I have done 23 years at the bar. I won't leave. Then you will better leave. So the General Secretary, Honorable McMenu and everything, they took him out. I don't know whether they pampered him or whatever they said to him. And then he came back into the meeting. So after the meeting, I told them, you are always blaming me that I am not part of the campaign over there. Even in this small four-corner room that we are seated with this guy, he is not comfortable, he wants me out. You think when he mounts a political stage for a rally, he would invite me to be there? So today you've all witnessed what you've witnessed. And so nobody should blame me. All the billboards in the constituency that he pasted his face and that of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's face on, those were my billboards. And my father's church's billboards. If he had gone for it from a commercial vendor, they would have given it to him for free because he's a handsome guy. He would have paid for it. No. So why do you turn around and say, I didn't contribute my quota in the constituency? Those billboards are for that of my father. And those I personally mounted. And he used them. Till there, thank you, Kramai. Then you tell me that I haven't done anything.
This question, I mean, so many comments, about 99% of them, they are asking that you abstained from the decision of Parliament regarding the e-levy. There's also the time when Parliament had to vote for the budgets, and then a personality was seen on the floor. There are questions whether it was you or not. If you can help us clarify this matter once and for all.
I want to finish something about Dome Kwabenya, then I'll move on there. The party should say it as it is. Elton, this guy will stand on a campaign platform during our primaries and ask delegates, compare me with Adwoa, compare our fathers. Adwoa's father is an illiterate. Adwoa's father is a farmer. Adwoa's father is a nobody in politics. My father is a professor and educated. My father has been in parliament before. My father has done the work before. If you have these options, would you take a farmer's daughter to parliament? Apostle Dr. Adwoa Safo's contribution to this country, recognizable by even a child that is born today. The charity work this man has done. He's the father for the fatherless. He feeds mouths in this country. And you, this small boy, you reduce him to something small. And then you go and stand in Dome Kwabenya, highly populated by his church members. You have degraded and insulted and what? Uttered defamatory words against their founder, their leader, their mini God. We worship our father in a church. We worship him like God. And it's a movement, it's a church, it's a family. You say all these things, and then you turn back. Why don't you tell them the truth? No. When you cut us, when you cut Chris Asafo and Adwoa Safo, you don't see blood, you see water, right? We also have blood running in our veins. Can
there be reconciliation, and what will it take to bridge whatever gap that now exists between the two families?
Two families. One is the movement, and one is the family. If Professor Michael Quay thinks that his son has something good to present to us in Parliament as an MP, every time this party comes to power, you contest me, you are rewarded. You were giving ambassadorial. This guy won't stay there and work. You were giving CEO, free zones or board or free zones authority. He won't stay. Now you've been giving the work.
Let's talk about E-Levy now, because I've gotten so many comments on you abstain from the E-Levy. You've said it on record. There's also the issue about the vote to accept the 2021 budget and the person that was seen in Parliament. This person, was it you?
Oh, of course it was me. It was me. I wouldn't deny that. I just had a baby, lost a baby. I was still very heavy. I'd gone dark. You know, when fair people get pregnant, you lose your color. Any fair woman will tell you. It was me. They weren't seeing the complexion. They weren't seeing the trendy, because I was still sore.
The NDC guys raised issues about it. They said an imposter had come to the chamber.
On the floor of Parliament, remember I attacked Honorable Adwoa Safo about it. That was something that I thought it was petty, because I spoke to a few of his guys before I left, and they knew. If it's somebody you don't even know my voice, you can't recognize my voice as well. I thought it was cheap politics they were doing. It was me. It wasn't somebody impersonating me. I won't stand for that. E-Levy, I didn't vote for E-Levy.
So now you support that it's been taken off the books?
I didn't support E-Levy.
No, I'm talking about now.
I don't regret not supporting E-Levy. I refrained from coming down to vote because I believed in a single thing, that it was something that was not going to help this party. It was something that was taking the little out of the pockets of Ghanaians. The many people who were doing minor jobs, who were sending monies to their relatives in the village through Momo. You tax them. The little that they have, the woman by the roadside roasting plantain. If you calculate all the plantains on the chair, or on the table, sorry, it won't even come up to 100 Ghana. And then he's sending 20 Ghana to his mother in the village who is sick, and you look in the person's eye and take that tax away from it. And I was being convinced that if we do that and introduce that, we're not going to go to IMF. And we ended up at the IMF program.
Right.
What happened? And Ghanaians voted for us, voted against us, partly because of the E-Levy. And Dr. Bawumia, in his manifesto for the 2024 election, actually stated that if Ghanaians had given him the nod, he would take that nuisance tax away. And so I am vindicated. If it was a good tax, and we're saying that we can mobilize that money, and we won't run to the IMF, why were we at the IMF at the end of the day? And Ghanaians were suffering. How many rich people do Momo? I don't even have a Momo account. But the petty traders, the middle class people, you are not even putting any money in their pocket. The little there, you're also taxing out. It didn't make sense to me. My background, my father, he came from grass to grace. He has raised us to be charitable. He has raised his base with people that don't have money, the poor. And they told me, my church had a conversation with me. And that is my base. That is my constituency. I made a promise to myself, with my religion, with my church, with my party position. I chose to go with that of my church. And I've been vindicated. And today, my father has rewarded me, and the people are happy that made me to make kase. Me and family.
A few things before we move on. So what is next for you? I mean, you seem to have so many things on your chest. The party has set up a committee. You said that the chairman is conflicted, so it is a bogus committee. How should the party approach things going forward? We've got an election coming up in less than 4 years.
They shouldn't. This is a party that has fought for freedom of speech. This is a party that we've had a president that had come in and repeal the criminal libel law. We are in opposition. Well, how can you tell people not to speak? How can you restructure when you don't want people to speak? I am telling ourselves that if we want to be comedians and then do things and we laugh at our own acting, Ghanaians are ready to give us all the luxury to do that. But I don't think we want that. So let people pour out. Let people tell you why we did the things that we did. Let us see how we can, work it out with them. Those that have left. The love of the party, the love that people had for the party is no more. It's no more. How do we bring all of them back? How do we sit around the table again, put the right strategies, the right planning? And that's what we are going to do for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. We are going to bring him back as the flag bearer of the new patriotic party.
You think he's still the best person to lead the NPP?
He's the best person. We've marketed him before. We will market him again. And every person, I think, deserves a second chance. Elton, every person in this world deserves a second chance. Why do you bring a ticket once when you have precedents, you have a history? That tells us that the first time it doesn't work. Sometimes the second time it doesn't work. President Kufuor went how many times before he got the nod? His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, he went how many times before? We went 2007, we lost. We went 2012, we lost. It was 2016, after the election petition, through my effort in Domekwa Abenya.
Yes.
Me, that they're telling me that I've been ungrateful to the party. Based on what we discovered in Domekwa Abenya, we went to the court. We had electoral reforms, and that brought the party to power 3 times. Professor Mills, how many times did the late Professor Mills, may he still rest in perfect peace, how many times did he run? Our current president, John Mahama. President Mahama. He continued the leftover term of Professor Mills. He started his first term, he lost. He came again. Ghanaians rejected him. And he's come again. Where in the history of this country has a presidential candidate won the first time? So why are you telling Dr. Bawumia that Ghanaians don't like him, and you're going to put that in a report and present it to us, and you think we will accept it? No. So
just a few minutes ago, we had a statement on your screen. The New Patriotic Party issued a statement. This is what they acknowledge the disappointment and emotions that the last elections caused. Many of us as party members have on several platforms expressed our anger, disappointment, and frustration. However, we humbly ask that all party faithfuls remain calm so that cooler heads may prevail at this time. And as an officer of the party mandated by the party constitution to coordinate the activities and programs of the party, please know that all party members are hereby directed to immediately cease discussing party issues that create unrest, negativism, and disaffection in the media and other related platforms. And this statement is signed by the party's General Secretary, Justin Kodia Frimpong. You say that this is only gagging you from speaking out and it will not help.
I am just reminding the party that this is a party that we fought for freedom of speech. We had our once flag bearer and once president, walk on the streets of Ghana, demonstrating the Ghanaians should be allowed to speak. And it's a constitutional right, freedom of speech. Who started speaking? Our General Secretary. Who started speaking after we lost the election? He was going everywhere, explaining. He went to the extent of telling people that nobody should blame him for the election, what we lost. He went on radio saying that His Excellency, the President Nana Akufo-Addo, wasn't listening to them at cabinet. That is what Kodua went on radio to say. And what? Now it's Adwoa Safo stand and what? You are issuing a statement. What locus does he have? You were on radio. And if he wants to write a letter, a love letter to me, he should write that love letter. This is so general. And I don't think it's a general statement I want to respond to. But you started the game. He should go on social media and see how the party people are bashing him. He has an election coming up. He shouldn't be allowed, he shouldn't allow himself to be manipulated and used for other people's cause. If you have an election coming up and your party base is bitter and they want a voice to speak for them, what I'm doing, I want to clarify something. I'm a lawyer. I've read that statement. I am not discussing party issues here. There has been a character assassination on me. I have been defamed by my own party. And I have a duty owed to myself to clarify, to set the record straight, to strip them off that whatever they painted me, however they painted me, to bring me down. It's not what it was. It's not what it is.
Naturally, people with this kind of, anger in them will leave the party peacefully. You have no intention of leaving the party?
Nobody brought me in the party, and the party is not for anybody. We are all in there to build the party. So nobody can force me out. And you can't force me to keep my mouth shut. Other people speak. When other people speak, and it's not from something that is pushing for the Bawumia agenda, that is okay. But when it's something that is for the Bawumia agenda, everybody should keep quiet. We are not going to be suppressed.
And you'll not resign from the party too?
We will not resign until we have Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as the president of this country. He deserves it. He's a humble person. He's an honest person. He has some good in him. That if Ghanaians are given the opportunity and we present him again and we market him again, he can take up the seat. What didn't Ghanaians say about the ex-president, our ex-president? Akufo-Addo can never be president. He's arrogant. He's that. He's that. The party, people like us, all of us stood with him, stood with the party and said, we'll bring him again. We'll bring him again. Now, with what we have done, that caused the loss of our elections. That cost us our elections. During Kufuor's time, it was better when we were saying it on our lips. That the 2007 election that we lost was a judgment on Kufuor's governance. And so ex-President Kufuor should go and stay home. Because we are saying party, no. And President Kufuor quietly went and sat there. Never did anything. Why is it that now we are saying that our loss is a reflection of the governance and the things that we did? And not the Nkurɔfoɔ is a bitter pill for them to swallow. We have to swallow it and make sure that we do the right thing, correct it, and bring our candidate back again. And so, Ghanaians are going to accept it.
Somebody is asking, this is coming from a very prominent member of the party, he's asking, at the time that
when he sees me,
at the time that the party was in desperate need of numbers to pass crucial bills,
I said when he wants to,
and you were not available. He claims that a private jet was put at your disposal.
If he wants,
and so you didn't come to help the party at the time.
If he wants to ask me that question,
okay, let me rephrase it and say that I'm the one answering the question.
He has put it in your head. Assuming, I said it on another platform, assuming there was a private jet arranged to come pick me up, I want to ask those putting that out there, was Adwoa Safo the only person that a private jet was arranged for her to bring her down for a voting? Was I the only one who was absent in the country at the time? I'm asking them, why are we being hypocritical? Why are we not saying the truth to Ghanaians? When it's Adwoa Safo, let's put it out there, let's disgrace her, let's assassinate her character. But when it's somebody else, we want to push it under the carpet. We want to cover it up. Well, assuming that there was a private jet arranged for me, I want to put it to them and ask them, was I the only one that the private jet was arranged to come and pick? So where is he leading with that? And I didn't come because E-Levy, I don't want to vote. And I've said it. And it was a principled decision I took. And I look forward to that day in our democracy, like we have in the advanced world, where we will have members of parliament actually listen to their constituents and go into the chamber and vote what their constituents want and not what party has whipped them to do. We are graduating there. Whoever thought that there could ever be a hang parliament in parliament or have a speaker from another party for a ruling party? But we got there. We will get there one day. I took a personal decision. I know that there were people in there who would also have done so. How are you holding that against me?
In wrapping up, I mean, as you look, as you address party people, some who are not happy with the comments coming from, some who are also happy with the comments coming from, what will you tell them in terms of building your party ahead of the 2028 elections?
What I want to tell them is I have never been ungrateful for what the party have done for me, the opportunity that they've given me to serve my people on the party's ticket. I very much appreciate that, and I would never say anywhere that I have been treated unfairly when it comes to that. I have never abandoned my job deliberately to punish my government. People went to the extent of saying Adwoa Safo is even holding the party to ransom and making certain claims. All false. I have never done that, and I will never do that to my own party. I have wholeheartedly served my party. I have wholeheartedly and painstakingly worked towards victory for our party. And we came into power. I worked tirelessly to make sure that we succeed as a government. At a point, they thought I wasn't good enough again, and I took a back seat. I am telling them, all that they said about me was wrong, and I will go all length. Have you read the book, The 48 Rules of Power?
I do. I have, actually.
You know something about reputation?
Absolutely.
It is all that a man has got, and you have to fight to make sure your reputation is intact, and that's what I'm doing. And that is the same thing that we will do for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Nobody should come and tell us that he is somebody that Ghanaians don't like, they don't want him, and if we present him again, he's going to fail us again. Are you God? Those people saying that, are they God? God is the one who puts men on thrones, men that have been rejected. He can crown you as a king. So we pray to Allah, we pray to Almighty God, that whatever work that we will put in place for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's team,
is there time?
Bring him back.
Is there time to do that? You've got less than 4 years.
We had time to do it for...
Is 2028 possible for the NPP?
We had time for Nana Akufo-Addo. 2007, we did it. We didn't have time. We had time for Nana Akufo-Addo. 2012, we did it. We had time for Nana Akufo-Addo. 2016, we did it. We will have time for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and we shall succeed. Inshallah.
Let's leave it here for now. Sarah Adwoa Safo has been my guest on the pause. Thank you so much for coming through, and I wish you the very best. Hopefully, see you as Vice President, President, or the Speaker of Parliament. These are the
Amen. Forget about Domi Kwabinyo.
So let's take a short break here and return with more here on the program.